Dakota, a 19-year-old girl, had just moved from New Jersey to Connecticut to start a new chapter in her life. Fresh out of high school and unsure of her future, she was trying to find her footing in a new state. One evening, she decided to meet up with her best friend, who suggested they visit a local hookah bar called Cloud. Little did Dakota know, this night would mark the beginning of a chaotic and life-changing experience. At the hookah bar, Dakota noticed a tall, tattooed guy wearing a cowboy hat. He had a rugged charm that immediately caught her attention. Dakota, who had a soft spot for country music and cowboy aesthetics, was instantly intrigued. Her friend mentioned that the guy, whom they'll call Ryan, seemed interested in her. Ryan approached their group, introduced himself, and struck up a conversation. He was charming, funny, and seemed to agree with everything Dakota said, something that, in hindsight, should have been a red flag. As the night went on, Ryan's flirtatious behavior became more apparent. He even joked about marrying Dakota, which she found both amusing and flattering. By the end of the night, Ryan offered to give Dakota and her friend a ride to the hookah bar the next day. He took her number, and they started texting almost immediately. Ryan's messages were filled with compliments and a sense of urgency to see her again. He even suggested she sleep over at his place during an upcoming snowstorm, a bold request that made Dakota uneasy. Despite the red flags, Dakota was drawn to Ryan's charm and attention. She agreed to meet him again, unaware of the lies and manipulation that would soon unfold. This seemingly innocent encounter at the hookah bar was just the beginning of a story filled with betrayal, heartbreak, and unexpected twists. The next day, Dakota and her best friend planned to return to the hookah bar, Cloud, as Ryan had suggested. Dakota texted Ryan to confirm if he was still willing to give them a ride. To her surprise, Ryan acted as if he had no recollection of offering to drive them. He claimed he had only offered to help if they needed it, not that he would actually do it. This sudden shift in his behavior left Dakota confused and a little frustrated. Why offer something if you didn't mean it? Despite the odd interaction, Dakota and her friend decided to go to the hookah bar on their own. When they arrived, Ryan was there, and he immediately started chatting with Dakota again. During their conversation, Ryan casually mentioned that he had lied about his age. He wasn't 21 as he had initially claimed, but only 20. He explained that he was allowed to drink at the hookah bar because he knew the owners and had done some work for them in the past. This was another red flag, but Dakota brushed it off, still captivated by his charm. As the night went on, Ryan became increasingly touchy-feely, which made Dakota slightly uncomfortable. She didn't know him well enough for such physical closeness, but she didn't say anything. At one point, Dakota and her friend left the hookah bar briefly to grab some iced tea from a nearby store. While they were gone, Ryan texted Dakota, claiming that a girl sitting next to him was being overly friendly and that he only had eyes for Dakota. This seemed odd, considering Dakota had just left for a few minutes. When Dakota returned, she noticed the girl Ryan had mentioned. She didn't say much and seemed out of place, but Dakota didn't think much of it at the time. The rest of the night was uneventful, and Dakota went home feeling unsure about her feelings for Ryan. She liked the attention he gave her, but something about his behavior felt off. The next few days, Ryan bombarded Dakota with texts, constantly, checking in and asking if he had done something wrong whenever she didn't respond immediately. His clingy behavior was starting to feel overwhelming, but Dakota wasn't ready to cut ties just yet. Little did she know, Ryan's true colors were about to reveal themselves in ways she never expected. As Dakota continued to talk to Ryan, his behavior became increasingly erratic. He would text her constantly, often getting upset if she didn't reply within minutes. His messages were filled with questions like, "Did I do something wrong?" or "Why aren't you answering me?" This level of neediness was starting to wear on Dakota, but she tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. During one of their conversations, Ryan brought up Dakota's new friend, David, whom she had met at the hookah bar. Ryan seemed jealous of David, even though Dakota and David were just friends. Ryan accused Dakota of being interested in David and claimed that she was cheating on him. This accusation was bizarre, considering Dakota and Ryan weren't officially in a relationship. They had only known each other for a few days, and yet Ryan was already acting possessive. Dakota tried to reassure Ryan that there was nothing going on between her and David, but Ryan's jealousy didn't subside. He continued to bring up David in their conversations, making Dakota feel guilty for simply talking to another guy. This was Dakota's first real taste of Ryan's manipulative tendencies, but she didn't fully recognize it at the time. Meanwhile, David, who had known Ryan for years, warned Dakota to be careful. He told her that Ryan had a history of getting close to girls quickly, only to lose interest and move on. David's warning planted a seed of doubt in Dakota's mind, but she wasn't ready to cut ties with Ryan just yet. She was still drawn to his charm and the attention he gave her, even though his behavior was becoming increasingly concerning. Ryan's jealousy and possessiveness were just the beginning of his manipulative tactics. Over the next few weeks, he would continue to gaslight Dakota, making her feel like she was the problem in their budding relationship. Little did Dakota know, Ryan was hiding a much bigger secret, one that would change everything. As Dakota continued to talk to Ryan, she started to notice more inconsistencies in his behavior. He would often go silent for hours, only to reappear with excuses like poor cell service or being in the moment with friends. Dakota's gut told her something wasn't right, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. One day, Ryan dropped a bombshell. He admitted that he had a girlfriend. He claimed that their relationship was on the rocks and that he was planning to leave her soon. Ryan even went as far as to say that he wanted to pursue something serious with Dakota once he was single. This revelation left Dakota stunned and conflicted. On one hand, she felt guilty for talking to someone who was already in a relationship. On the other hand, Ryan's charm and promises of a future together kept her hooked. Despite her reservations, Dakota decided to give Ryan the benefit of the doubt. She believed him when he said his relationship was ending and that he truly wanted to be with her. However, Ryan's behavior continued to raise red flags. He would often talk about how unhappy he was with his girlfriend, but he never seemed to take the steps to actually end the relationship. Instead, he kept stringing Dakota along, making her feel like she was the one he truly wanted. Ryan's manipulation didn't stop there. He started to make Dakota feel responsible for his unhappiness, claiming that she was the only good thing in his life. He would often say things like, "You're the reason I'm leaving her," or "I'm doing all of this for you." These statements put a lot of pressure on Dakota, making her feel like she had to live up to his expectations. Meanwhile, Ryan's girlfriend remained in the dark about his relationship with Dakota. Ryan continued to live with her, all while pursuing Dakota on the side. This double life was a ticking time bomb, and it was only a matter of time before everything exploded. After Ryan finally ended things with his girlfriend and moved out of her place, he began leaning heavily on Dakota for support, both emotionally and financially. He claimed that he was struggling to get back on his feet, having just bought a new truck and needing to pay rent to his sister, where he was now living. Ryan painted himself as someone who was down on his luck, and Dakota, being kind-hearted, felt compelled to help him. Ryan started asking Dakota for money to cover gas and food, claiming he was broke and couldn't afford basic necessities. Dakota, who had just started a new job and wasn't in a great financial position herself, still felt obligated to help. She would leave her debit card under her car seat for Ryan to use, or she would stop at Subway to buy him food when he said he was hungry. Ryan's constant requests for financial help began to weigh on Dakota, but she justified it by telling herself that she was being a good person. However, Dakota started to notice inconsistencies in Ryan's stories. While he claimed to be broke, he somehow had enough money to buy expensive items for his truck, like waterproofing materials. He also seemed to have no problem going out with his friends, even though he always told Dakota he couldn't afford to do anything with her. These contradictions made Dakota question whether Ryan was being honest with her. Despite her growing doubts, Dakota continued to help Ryan, partly because she felt sorry for him, and partly because she was still emotionally invested in their relationship. Ryan, meanwhile, continued to manipulate her, making her feel like she was the only one who could help him get through this tough time. He would often say things like, "I'm doing all of this for us," or "You're the reason I'm trying so hard." But as the weeks went on, Dakota began to feel more and more like Ryan was taking advantage of her kindness. She started to wonder if his financial struggles were even real, or if they were just another way for him to control her. Little did she know, Ryan's lies were about to unravel in a way she never expected. As Dakota continued to navigate her complicated relationship with Ryan, she started to notice more red flags. One day, while scrolling through Ryan's Facebook profile, she came across a post from a girl who had tagged him in a picture. The post included a painting the girl had made for Ryan, complete with a heart emoji. Dakota's stomach dropped. Who was this girl, and why was she tagging Ryan in such a personal way? When Dakota confronted Ryan about it, he brushed it off, claiming the girl was just a childhood friend. He explained that she had bought a tattoo machine from him, and in return, she had painted him the picture as a thank you gift. Dakota wanted to believe him, but something about his explanation didn't sit right with her. Why would a childhood friend tag him in such a romantic way? And why did Ryan seem so defensive when she asked about it? Dakota's suspicions grew when Ryan's behavior became even more erratic. He would often go out late at night with his friends, claiming he was just hanging out and didn't have good cell service. But Dakota couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One night, after a country concert, Ryan asked Dakota to come over and sleep at his place because he was going through a lot. Dakota agreed, but when she arrived, Ryan wasn't home. He texted her, saying he was just a few minutes away and that his friend Alex was dropping him off. When Ryan finally arrived, Dakota noticed something strange. A black car pulled up and Ryan got out. Instead of coming straight to Dakota's car, he walked up to his house, checked his mailbox, and waited for the black car to drive away before approaching her. It was 2 a.m. Who checks their mailbox at that hour? Dakota's gut told her that Ryan was hiding something, but she didn't have proof. The next day, Dakota's best friend called her with shocking news. She had been hanging out with her boyfriend and his friend when they picked up a girl who had been talking to Ryan for months. The girl was upset because she felt like Ryan was being shady and distant. When they asked her who she was talking about, she revealed it was Ryan. Dakota was devastated. The girl Ryan had been talking to was the same one who had tagged him in the painting on Facebook. Ryan had been leading a double life, seeing both Dakota and this other girl at the same time. The pieces of the puzzle were finally coming together, and Dakota realized just how deeply she had been deceived. After learning about Ryan's double life, Dakota's mind raced with questions. How long had Ryan been seeing this other girl? Was everything he had told her a lie? Determined to get answers, Dakota decided to confront Ryan about the suspicious behavior she had witnessed, including the strange mailbox incident. When Dakota brought up the mailbox, Ryan immediately became defensive. He accused her of being paranoid and overthinking things. "You're always on some crazy stuff," he said, trying to turn the blame back on her. This was classic gaslighting. Ryan was making Dakota feel like she was the problem, when in reality, he was the one hiding something. But Dakota wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. She pressed him for answers, demanding to know why he had checked his mailbox at 2 a.m. and why he had waited for the black car to drive away before coming to her. Ryan's excuses were flimsy, and Dakota could see right through them. She realized that the person in the black car was likely the other girl he had been seeing, and Ryan didn't want her to know about Dakota. Despite Ryan's attempts to manipulate her, Dakota stood her ground. She told him that she knew about the other girl and that she wasn't going to tolerate being lied to anymore. Ryan, caught in his web of lies, finally admitted that he had been seeing the other girl for months. He tried to downplay it, claiming that it wasn't serious and that Dakota was the one he really wanted to be with. But Dakota wasn't buying it. The more Ryan talked, the more Dakota realized just how deep his lies went. He had been living a double life, juggling two relationships while manipulating both girls into thinking they were the only one. Dakota felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. She had trusted Ryan, and he had taken advantage of that trust in the worst way. As Dakota processed everything, she knew she had to make a decision. Could she ever trust Ryan again, or was it time to walk away for good? The answer was becoming clearer with every lie Ryan told. After confronting Ryan about his lies, Dakota decided it was time to cut ties with him for good. She sent him a final text, telling him never to contact her again and that she knew everything about his double life. Ryan, realizing he had been caught, tried to backtrack and apologize, but Dakota wasn't having it. She had seen through his manipulation and wasn't going to let him gaslight her anymore. As Dakota reflected on everything that had happened, she began to piece together the full extent of Ryan's lies. Not only had he been seeing another girl behind her back, but he had also lied about his financial situation. Ryan had claimed he was broke and needed Dakota's help to pay for gas and food, but in reality, he had lost his job weeks earlier and had been spending money carelessly. His sister had never asked him to pay rent, and the red car he had been driving actually belonged to his now ex-girlfriend. Dakota felt a mix of anger and relief. She was angry at Ryan for lying to her and taking advantage of her kindness, but she was also relieved to finally know the truth. She realized that Ryan's behavior had nothing to do with her and everything to do with his own insecurities and manipulative tendencies. He had projected his guilt onto her, making her feel like she was the problem when, in reality, he was the one who had been dishonest and unfaithful. Despite the pain of the situation, Dakota knew she had made the right decision by ending things with Ryan. She had learned a valuable lesson about trusting her instincts and recognizing red flags in relationships. But just when she thought the drama was over, Dakota received some unexpected news that would change everything. After cutting ties with Ryan, Dakota thought she was finally free of his lies and manipulation. But Ryan wasn't ready to let her go that easily. He began texting her constantly, begging for forgiveness and claiming that he had made a mistake. He even tried to turn the tables on Dakota, saying that what he had done to her was no different from what she had done with David. This was yet another attempt to gaslight her and make her feel guilty for something that wasn't her fault. Dakota, however, wasn't falling for it. She had seen through Ryan's manipulation and wasn't going to let him control her anymore. She told him that their situations were completely different. She had only known Ryan for a few days when she started talking to David, whereas Ryan had been in a full-blown relationship with her while seeing another girl behind her back. There was no comparison. Ryan, realizing that his usual tactics weren't working, finally admitted the full extent of his lies. He confessed that he had been seeing the other girl for months and that they had been intimate multiple times. He even admitted that he had invited her over to his house and that they had slept together in the same bed he shared with Dakota. This was the final straw for Dakota. She couldn't believe how calculated and intentional Ryan's betrayal had been. Despite his apologies, Dakota knew there was no coming back from this. She told Ryan that she wanted nothing to do with him ever again and that he needed to leave her alone. Ryan, desperate to salvage the situation, tried to make promises about changing and becoming a better person, but Dakota wasn't interested. She had already given him too many chances, and she wasn't going to waste any more time on someone who had hurt her so deeply. As Dakota walked away from the conversation, she felt a sense of closure. She had finally stood up for herself and taken control of her life. But just when she thought the drama was over, she received some unexpected news that would change everything. Just when Dakota thought her ordeal with Ryan was over, she received life-changing news. She was pregnant. The revelation came as a shock, especially after everything she had been through with Ryan. Dakota was faced with a difficult decision, one that would shape the rest of her life. As she processed the news, Dakota reflected on the lessons she had learned from her relationship with Ryan. She realized that she had ignored red flags and allowed herself to be manipulated because she wanted to believe in the best in people. But now, she knew better. She had grown stronger and more aware of her worth, and she was determined to make the best decision for herself and her future. Dakota decided to cut all ties with Ryan for good. She knew that he wasn't capable of being the partner or father she needed, and she wasn't willing to let him back into her life. Instead, she focused on surrounding herself with supportive friends and family who would help her through this challenging time. In the months that followed, Dakota worked hard to rebuild her life. She leaned on her loved ones for support and began to plan for the future. While the road ahead wasn't easy, Dakota knew she had the strength to face whatever challenges came her way. She had learned the importance of trusting her instincts, standing up for herself, and never settling for less than she deserved. As for Ryan, Dakota later found out that he had started a relationship with the other girl he had been seeing. While it hurt to know that he had moved on so quickly, Dakota realized that it was for the best. She deserved someone who would treat her with respect and honesty, and she was determined to find that when the time was right. In the end, Dakota's story was one of growth, resilience, and self-discovery. She had been through a whirlwind of betrayal and heartbreak, but she emerged stronger and wiser. Her journey was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope for a brighter future.